And then, someplace in the midst of all this, they're about to do redistricting. Yeah. And with all due respect to the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, a very noble entity by any measure, campaign finance has got nothing on redistricting. You want to talk about how you corrupt and undermine democracy? Here's a funny notion. Why not give all the people who want to retain their positions and their power the ability to set the parameters for how they retain their positions and their power? Let them draw their election districts. Now, redistricting is a horrible, horrible process by which people who are unable to do anything but be self-serving serve themselves. And we're about to go into it, and here's the remarkable thing. The remarkable thing is, you pay to have your democracy undermined. The Wisconsin State Senate has hired a lawyer, several private lawyers, to go in and come up with a redistricting plan in which, this is the majority of the state senate, they can't lose, right? Draw a bunch of districts where we win. And they're not paying out of their party coffers for these attorneys. You, the taxpayers of Wisconsin, are paying for attorneys to come up with plans that make it less likely that you will have competitive legislative districts in Wisconsin. That would make King George III jealous. I mean, that is monarchical rule at the most obscene level, because it isn't just imposing something on you, it's making you pay for it, and then ultimately it's telling you that that's democracy. It's not democracy. It's not democracy. We have an emergency moment in Wisconsin. We have so many assaults on our democratic process. We have so many challenges as regards practices like redistricting. We have the campaign finance reality. They're actually trying to gut out what little control we have over our judicial elections through immense good work of the Democracy Campaign and other groups. Now they want to cut the funding there. This is a bad moment. It's a bad time. And I want to just ask you, Brian Kennedy back there in the corner, are you feeling depressed now? Are you feeling a little down? All right. Well, I'm not. And let me tell you why. Because I am a Wisconsinite. We fish through ice. We expect it to be a little unpleasant. My daughter Whitman, who's over here, one time we were walking out on Lake Mendota. It was 20 below zero. And we're going out, and I'm saying, I got my hands inside my coat, gloves, everything. I'm saying, Whit, how far are we going here? And she says, as far as our feet will take us. And I'm like, well, how are we going to get back? And she's like, it's okay, it's not that cold. And that's what we are a fantastic people in especially the most unpleasant of moments, the most depressing of moments. And I want to tell you something. What I have seen over the last 2 months, actually, and I'm not counting the 78 days, in Wisconsin has been absolutely magic and absolutely restorative. And it has given me much more hope than I ever had through all of Mike McCabe's good work. I'm serious. You know what? Mike's like, oh, we got a new plan for campaign finance reform. Oh, we got a new plan for redistricting reform. Oh, we got a new ethics. It's not wonderful, Mike. We're going to give you an editorial. We support you. That's great. Where's the Army? Well, you know what? You know what? I was out in front of the Capitol a few weeks ago with 150,000 people. That's the Army. The fact of the matter is that we should thank Governor Walker. We should thank Governor Walker because he got us out of that terrible circumstance of believing, oh, here's Governor Walker now. I'm not going to take the call. But we got out of that terrible circumstance of believing that, it wasn't so great, right? Tommy Thompson spending $10 million on a campaign, but no, we're still Wisconsin. Russ Feingold gets beat for re-election, but you know, we're still Wisconsin. You know, we kept telling ourselves that, you know, we're like the frog in the water, right? You know, they're slowly turning the heat up, and we kept saying, well, it's pleasant. You know, sort of, I'm feeling a little Florida, feeling like I'm on the equator, feeling like I'm burning, but we kept accepting it. And to his great credit, Scott Walker pushed us so far that we didn't accept it anymore. And this is probably the best moment the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign and reformers and change agents and rebels and radicals have had in this state since the days of Robert M. La Follette. Because they have pushed us so far that we now have hundreds of thousands of people who will march with us, who will fight with us, and who will say, we are not going to let them take our state away. We are not going to let them tell us that this facade of democracy is democracy. We want the real thing. We want a real Wisconsin democracy, and we are going to campaign for it. We are going to fight for it. We're not going to stop simply with beating a budget repair bill or beating back the worst parts of a budget bill. We are not going to be satisfied until we do what was done more than 100 years ago by the first generation of progressives, and that is to cleanse this state of the evil influence of corporate dollars, of corporate influence, and to say finally, no, the wealthy, the elites do not rule Wisconsin, the people rule Wisconsin. Robert M. La Follette is right. The people shall rule. The people shall rule. And La Follette said it best. La Follette said it best. Democracy is a life. That wonderful, wonderful phrase, democracy is a life. What he meant by that is that we cannot constrain our definition of our democratic engagement. We must expand it. The fact of the matter is, right now, we are living what La Follette wanted us to live. We are experiencing democracy as a life because we have figured out that democracy does not begin and end on Election Day. It is small d democratic to say when an elected official has failed to represent us that we will recall that elected official now. We will not wait till the next election. We will do it now. That is a progressive power. That is a progressive form of reform. That is a democratic tool. And we are saying without any caution, without any compromise, that democracy also exists in the streets. That the fact is, we do not have to wait for an election to be heard to exercise our democratic rights. You know, the founders of the American experiment did not have big chapters on voting in the Constitution. You know, the fact is, they weren't the biggest believers in voting. At the founding of this republic, right, I'm sorry, you women, you're out of here. Right? You don't get to vote. Right? Those people of color, you're out of here. You don't get to vote. People who don't own property, you're out of here. You don't get to vote. We had a very small number of people who were given democratic privileges, democratic rights at the founding of the republic. But the people objected when they sent that Constitution out in 1787. The people said, we're not signing on for this thing. We won't accept this document until you add a Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights didn't go into voting. It didn't go into how we hold elections. It went into how we hold those in power to account. And you read that wonderful First Amendment. That wonderful First Amendment. It says you have freedom of speech. That's not freedom of speech to you know, shout some obscenity. I don't care if you do. But that's not why they wrote it. It was freedom of speech to speak truth to power. You have freedom of the press. That's not, you know, some, you know, excuse for Rupert Murdoch to make an extra $1 billion. No, no, no. That is a Tom Paine power. That is a power to go out and say, if those in positions of authority are not serving you, then you revolt against them. That's what freedom of the press is supposed to be. But the most wonderful power of all is the right to assemble. the right to assemble and to petition for the redress of grievances. That is a small d democratic right. Nothing is more democratic than to say to those who may not have the right to vote, who may not have the power to contribute $1 million to a campaign, who may not have the ability to hire a lobbyist, you have the right to go to your town square. You have the right to go to your capital square with 50, 1,000, 10,000, 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, 150,000 of your fellow citizens and to say, kill the bill. No, we will not let you roll over our state. We are Wisconsinites. We are exercising our right to assemble. It is a democratic right. We have a right to petition for the redress of grievances. And we are exercising that right today. The state of Wisconsin is in a process of realizing the small d democratic promise of the American experiment. And don't let anyone tell you when you go out to demonstrate with your funniest sign and your craziest slogan. Don't let anybody tell you that you aren't acting exactly as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and Abraham Lincoln and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert M. La Follette would have asked you to do. You are acting precisely in the best of the American and the Wisconsin democratic tradition. You are, in fact, a Wisconsin democracy campaign. Thank you so much for having me.